Ready, mate?
I mean, you've done how many of these?
Millions.
Okay, right.
Yeah. Have some fun.
Hello and welcome to the Deliver Social podcast. I am very pleased to announce we have got Daniel O'Reilly, aka Dapper Laughs. I'm going to let you do the introduction because I tried to rehearse it. I couldn't do it, mate. So go for it. Do the big intro.
Hi, my name is Daniel. I'm a living legend within the comedy and social media and now mental health scene. Hi, I'm Dan, aka Dapper Laughs, and it's good to be back here. Yeah,
amazing. It's great to have you back here. It feels like must be in last year we met, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Or the start of the year, but obviously that whole year, just this 1 year, a lot has been going on.
Yeah.
But I want to go back. I want to go back to the journey of now. Obviously, we've got TikTok, Instagram, everything going on.
Yeah.
Talk to me about Vines, or what were Vines?
Yeah, man. So I think I was one of the first, if not the first person to sort of be a content creator in the comedy genre. Do you know what I mean? And it was an app. I was one of the first. I'd say that there was lots of people doing it around the same sort of time as me, but I think I was one of the first to sort of really blow doing it. The first one to sort of become like large on it on Vine.
What was the first one?
Vine, yeah, it was Vine.
Do you remember what the video was?
Yeah, it was a video of me. The first ever video I did was a video of me standing next to a bin, just doing a joke, saying, "Where have you been?" And then like cutting to it, and then cutting back and being like, "Where have you really been?" Because it was a bin, like just a cheesy joke. But I was a comedian, professional comedian, working on the cruise ships for years. I was on and off the cruise ships. I've done the holiday parks. I used to do like hotel entertainment over in Cyprus, Butlins. I was like Red Coat, all of that jazz. And I'd done musical theatre and acting. So I was a performer and, auditioned for like EastEnders and everything like that as an actor. And comedy was just the natural way for me to perform because I loved being on stage and performing outside of musical theatre. So going and doing stand-up and that took me all around the world on the cruise ships. Come back, started a business and still had the bug for it. Do you know what I mean? I was always wanted to do comedy. And the Vines, these apps, when I discovered it, just gave me an outlet when I couldn't get on the stage to make these videos.
At that point, because you just said it was an outlet, was it meant to become anything? Or was it just a way to express yourself?
Yeah, no, I didn't understand the concept of followers or fame. I mean, I knew fame in regards to the traditional sense on TV, but on social media, it wasn't even a thing. You know, Facebook was around and everyone had Facebook, MySpace maybe before that, if you can think about Bebo. But the Vine was really the first, like, content creator platform, you know, that really sort of, you know, if you've done a video and then it just went out there, like Facebook was for you and your friends, right?
Yeah.
But Vine was more like it was for the world. You know, you were doing it and putting it there and people were discovering it. You know, you were putting something out there and it was a brand new concept to me. So I can remember like after, I don't know, a couple of months or something, I was in the pub with my pals and a few people and I said, "Oh man, I've got 40,000 followers." And they were like, "Fucking hell." I was like, "I know, 40,000 people." And back then I imagined it in like what 40,000 people would look like. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And I thought I was famous then. I thought I was like a superstar with 40,000 followers. And the videos were going viral and then the same people were commenting and you know saying I'm a fan and stuff like that. And it just blew my mind.
How much of a confidence boost was that for you?
Huge, yeah. I mean, creating comedy is terrifying because I mean I'm still you know, I think if you're a comedian you suffer with certain mental health issues anyway just to be a comedian, but it's like you're asking for constant reassurance. And to me, my art form, creating comedy creation, I mean, we've worked together on an intimate level in regards to how I work, so you know, but it's a very personal process to me creating something. Everything I do comes from the heart and from my perspective on how I feel about whatever I'm discussing. So it's a very personal thing creating it. When you put it out, it's terrifying, whether it goes well or not, how it's received. And you're very conscious of, you know, how it's received. But when it goes well and when it continually goes well, yeah, it opens your creative mind, you know, because we are only sort of confined. Look, if I seriously didn't give a fuck about what anyone thought, I'd post 5 videos a day.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But I'm so conscious of them all being at a certain standard, that my current fan base or followers is up to their level of what they consider, you know, you're only as good as your last video, what they consider my standard of comedy is, and also how it's presented to new followers. So yeah.
So going back, would you say the videos you were doing before, I wouldn't say didn't care what you're putting out there, but there wasn't this awareness there, whereas now you know what your audience is looking for?
Yeah, originally it was years of just fucking testing, creative, finding myself creatively, pushing boundaries, you know what I mean? Really pushing boundaries. I mean, to me, early on, it was clear that the riskier and naughtier and closer to the mark the content was, the further it would spread, because a lot of my stuff was Facebook based as well. So I'd do it on Vine. I'd take it from Vines, just 6-second clips, and put it on Facebook. And I was the first person, I think, on Facebook, first person to like sort of hit 1 million. It was the only other people on Facebook that had 1 million were like your Disney or your Facebook or Sony.
Not individuals.
Not individuals, yeah. So that was the rate I was growing on Facebook was, and what I realised quite early on was whether you liked it or hated it, if you interacted with it, it spread it, right? So if you're just on Facebook, this was the old way it worked. It doesn't work like this no more. But if you wrote, I hate this guy, whatever, it showed your friends.
It helped you.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Yeah.
So, I was quite consciously controversial, and that's where the character came from, really. It was a way of me, the character Dapper Laughs, it was a way of me to express myself with a safety blanket to the extreme. Do you know what I mean? Because, there's a piece of me in Dapper Laughs, right? Obviously, because it's me.
Yeah.
But everything I create comes from me, but it's an exaggerated version of maybe a teenage me and an exaggerated version of lad culture. So yeah,
I think it's interesting what you just said there. Dapper Laughs is a character. It's the part of you is obviously there because you are the character, but it is a character. It's not a reflection on you as a person.
Yeah, no, of course not.
Because the comedy that it reminds me of like in-betweeners sort of esque sort of how lads are, and the exaggeration of what they talk about nights out and all that sort of stuff. Was that Dapper Laughs character always in your mind? Particularly when you look back in your musical theatre days, were you looking at a way to express yourself in a certain individual, or do you prefer playing characters as opposed to the films you do now?
For me, character comedy is I never knew that. I didn't what it was when I come off the cruise ships and started doing stand-up comedy, because when you do cruise ship comedy, it's family friendly. You have to do stuff that's funny.
PG.
Yeah, you have to do stuff that's maybe innuendo based, but it's for your grandma, your mum, and your daughter. Do you know what I mean? On a cruise ship. Do you know what I mean? So it's very, very tame, like, sort of slapstick comedy. And I learned that as my trade, and I was good at it. I was a showman. I was very cheesy, and I enjoyed that, the audience interaction. When I come back and try to implement that when I was turning into an adult, when I was in my early 20s, at the comedy clubs, it died. It didn't work. No one wanted to hear stuff that was nice. Do you know what I mean? You go to I realised quite quickly, and it's irrelevant what people say in the media, how things are, how offended everyone is in the media. That's irrelevant. If you go to a comedy club, everyone in there wants to hear dark stuff. People go to a comedy club to have sort of a release from life. They want to laugh at stuff that's upsetting them and annoying them. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So it's dark, you've got to skate that line. And I died on my arse, and I realised that, I have to really push the boundaries with what I'm doing and I was young. I was very young. So it was easier for me to create an alter ego to do that than to maybe do it from a place where I was coming from, because really, I wasn't, although I was a lad, I wasn't like a lad's lad. Yeah.
Would you change anything if you could look back now? Would you change any of how quickly that escalated? Because Dapper Laughs character, when it was huge, and like you said, when I look back at my childhood and even when I was at college, I remember your videos. Those are the ones that sort of come up, and now, and I think content creators, people want to become influencers, or they want to be social media stars. That wasn't a thing before.
Yeah,
it's your fault. People now want to do that, right? Yeah. But you did it at such a rapid rate, and now obviously you've got Instagram and TikTok, and things have just blown up. Video content is so key.
Yeah.
What would be your advice to yourself now, looking back at that Dapper Laughs character? Would you change anything, or would you just the way it's...
No, I don't know. I mean, I made a lot of mistakes. I've done a lot of things wrong. I said a lot of stuff that now that I've got 2 daughters, I look back on and cringe. And where I cringe, and where I didn't understand a lot of the backlash because I was a fucking 20-year-old lad, right? Although I wasn't like the traditional sense of like a real lad's lad, I was still out drinking, doing drugs and chasing birds and all of that. At the time, I didn't care, right, what anyone else thought. I thought I was doing the right thing because everything was going viral. But would I change anything? I don't think so, because I think I've got a beautiful perspective now on how we change. I mean, no, I don't. It was tough, man, going through what I went through. Everyone watching, being on the news, and being on Newsnight.
Yeah, the infamous
Newsnight. Yeah, it was tough. It was real tough. It was very embarrassing. It was very public. Press at the door, paps, all of that stuff. Being publicly shamed, being associated with things like rape culture and being the rape comedian and all of that because of jokes and stuff I said. It was tough, and I wouldn't want to go through that again or wish it upon anyone, but I wouldn't change it because I think it makes a great story that you can get things horrifically wrong and you can still fucking learn from them and turn things around and be a positive role model or a positive thing. If anyone looks back to when they were in their 20s, we were twats, right? Let's just have it right.
Still am.
Yeah, well, yeah, so am I as well. And I get some journalists or some people in the press, still try, yeah, but you said this and you believe in this and this is what I'm like, no, 20-year-old me done that, or 25-year-old me done that. I'm 40 now. I've got 2 daughters, and now I understand how influencing lads with, talking about going out and shagging girls and that. I understand now why people got the because I've got 2 daughters, and they're like, oh, so some people even like, oh, right, so now that you've got daughters, you get. Well, yes, because my perspective has changed. Do you know what I mean? Why would I think why would I think that way when I was out chasing girls? Do you know what I mean? So now I think I kind of paved the way a little bit to show, other influencers, other lads coming up, even though some of them are still quite bad now, but majority of people that was growing up through that going, oh, fucking hell, I don't want that to happen to me, what happened to him. And yeah, you're right, you shouldn't say that. And look, if you say that, that happens. And look, we've all learned something here. So
I think what you're saying now is as well, it's definitely a lot more out there. Cancel culture. People speak about it now, comedians particularly. Some comedians are saying, I'm not going to stop the jokes I've done because that's me. My
biggest regret, I think it's a real tough one, because although my content really pushed the line, I'm still stuck, because through my sobriety, there's a massive element of accepting your wrongs that you have to do, right? And I can look back and say there's some stuff that I said and done that I wouldn't be proud if my daughter saw it, or maybe influence people in the wrong way, But my intention was never malice, right? So I'm split. It's like my heart is torn in 2 ways, where I was just being a twat, right? But my intentions weren't malice, and like it was hard what I went through. But a massive part of me wished I never apologised. It's really difficult because you would never see Ricky Gervais, one of my idols, or you'd never see like Jimmy Carr, or like all these comedians that are top of the game that I aspire to be like. You'd never see them apologise for a joke. Like I had to go on Newsnight and apologise for my whole fucking career. But you'd never see them apologise because they're like, look, it's a joke. It's the way you take it. And there was no malice intended from me. And sometimes jokes, you get them wrong. You say things and they offend people and you get them wrong. What, are you meant to then stop being a comedian? And that was their message to me. And what message is that to the world? That, in every other line of work, if you worked in your company and you'd done something wrong, you'd get fired. But the person would go and get another job in the industry somewhere else. For me, it wasn't that.
You were crucified.
Yeah, for me, it was like, please, die. Basically,
I mean, they really did go.
They were like, never ever do comedy again. Never do any social media videos. And a lot of people were, when I was still doing stuff, people were like, you're still around, like as if like we thought maybe you probably should have killed yourself then. Yeah, it was dark.
In terms of Newsnight, how did that come about? What happened? Were you invited to go on? Did you want it at that time? Express yourself.
Newsnight was kind of was sold to me as crisis management. Right, because at the time, my management team, who had fired me, were getting bombarded with people on their roster on the agency were saying they were going to jump ship unless I was fired because the press were putting pressure on the other talent on the roster. It was horrific, man. What happened? It was crazy. So they let me go, and they were hounded with offers to interview me and stuff like that. And my father had died around the same sort of time, so I just wasn't really in the right headspace, and I was heavily using drink and drugs to cope. But the pressure on my family, the press going to my family to try and interview my mum, stepmom, and hounding me outside. The pressure of it, when the non-stop articles, it was just killing me. And it was sold to me as a way to stem the flow of flack that I was getting from the press and to stop it all. So that's where that come about. And yeah, and it was pitched to me as that, and then I went on and done that, and it just made it worse, to be honest with you. It just, everyone just saw it for what it is, which what it was because at the time I did not feel sorry. Do you know what I mean? I felt like I'd been thrown under the bus, and my whole life had just been ripped apart over a joke. So although I'm there saying, I'm sorry, inside me I was angry. It took me years later to realise the things I'd done wrong. And that came across, I think, in the interview. People were like, oh, he's just saying sorry because it's well bad what's happening to him. So anyone that didn't like me probably didn't like me anymore. But then the people that did like me, I alienated them because they were like, oh, right, you're giving up on us. We've been sticking up for you. So it fucked a lot of things for me, and it's a bit of a regret.
In terms of the media relationships now, because I see a lot of positive stuff now, and that has completely flipped. So I remember you getting absolutely crucified by the media. But the stuff now, you've changed completely in terms of the narrative that you put out there now. It's all positive, all about mental health and sobriety. Yeah. How's your relationship with the media now?
I think...
Are you still wary of them?
Yeah, man, yeah. I probably got PTSD from it, to be completely honest with you, because as soon as I see an article or something pop up about me...
it's like...
Yeah, man, yeah, it comes, and it's highly tied into my addiction as well. I used to drink and use drugs to avoid reading about myself because it just ripped me apart. Mostly so because I know deep down inside who I am, and it's very painful reading articles and comments about someone else, because it's not me. Do you know what I mean? An article would come and they'd say, pro-rape comedian coming to Glasgow to do a show. And then everyone would be like, why is there, just because I'd done a joke about another article where they'd said my TV show was an almanac for rape culture. That's why I was talking about it, right? So I'm cutting this vicious circle of them saying that I'm about this, me talking about it. And then the comments underneath it going, oh my God, is there someone that's pro-rape? And you desperately inside want to cry out to these people. You know what I mean? And then the gig getting cancelled, and then weeks more because it had been cancelled. And it was like this perpetuation of everything falling apart in the press. But now I'm like, I don't really want to talk to anyone. Do you know what I mean? And they don't talk about me. I don't know if you've noticed anything. I haven't noticed anything in the press. The press don't tend to want to write positive things about people, because the British public and people on social media are very rarely share praise. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
they don't. The other way. It's the other way. And listen, all of the posts online, they're all, it because you work in the industry. They're all about clicks and interaction in order to sell revenue for the advertising space, right? So the more people that comment and click on the link, the more clickbait it's got to be. And unfortunately, bad news sells. So they're not interested in the mental health groups the group I've created, or the podcast, or the work I'm doing. Really, I think since all this work I've done in the last year and all my sobriety, I haven't seen one bit of press, which is quite sad, really. But I've only thought about it now since speaking to you, because that's not why I've done it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I mean, that's really interesting, especially your take on it there. In terms of the career, you spoke about highs and lows. You are now going back on tour next year.
Yeah.
How much are you looking forward to that? Is that going to be like a release when you're back on there on stage? What's that going to be like for you?
It's bigger than it's bigger than anything I can describe. Really, it's bigger than it's like being uncancelled. It's like, it's taken 10 years, man, to I had to buy a nightclub in order to perform stand-up comedy. That's how bad it was, that people were terrified to let me perform in their
So you had to do it in your own space.
in comedy clubs. I had to buy my own nightclub, and sell my own tickets to my own audience in order to just be able to get up and do what I love. And since the tour has been announced, all the comedy clubs want me to go and perform. It's like, when can you come? Can we put you on the bill? Da, 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 da. It's like I've gone from. It's surreal, mate. To be honest with you, I didn't think that things were ever going to turn. I kind of always thought I had to live. The way that I was living and working was in a space of the people that like me are here, and every now and then, once I get enough money together, I'll rent a venue and I'll put a big. I saved up all my money and done the Troxy, I've done the O2, but that was all myself. Do you know what I mean? I never thought things would change, and it all come about through the sobriety. As soon as I went sober, I met the guy that produces my sobriety podcast. He got me on GB News, which was like my first bit of TV back after Big Brother. And through GB News, an old big comedy promoter that I'd gone to before to try and get me on at Edinburgh saw me on GB News, then went back and looked at the podcast and looked at everything and just rang me up and said, I think it's time that the industry... He literally rang me up and said, I think it's time that the industry forgave you and took you back. So I'm going to get behind. He had this weird phone call with this guy that I hadn't spoken to. Last time I'd spoken to him was maybe 5 years before, where I was ringing him and pleading with him to put me on an Edinburgh. He was like, it's like the Lion's Den. The comedians hate me. The comedy industry hate me. More so the comedians. They always hated me. They didn't see me as a comedian. They didn't think I deserved. 25 of them signed an open letter to get me cancelled. It was fucking crazy, and they should be all about free speech. But anyway, I was begging him 5 years ago to put me on in Edinburgh, and then he rang me and he just said, like, I love everything you stand for. I've been listening to the podcast. Like, I think you're a great person, and I think what happened to you was wrong. It's the first time I ever heard anyone in the industry say that. And then he said, let's fucking show them, man, that you're back. And now 30 dates later, 11,000 tickets sold. It's surreal.
The title, Out of Character, where did that come about?
I mean, Out of Character it's a mixture of so many things. It's me out of Dapper Laughs, because the industry is terrified of Dapper Laughs, the brand. Yeah. So the main thinking behind it was, how are we gonna convince these venues to take a tour? How are we going to convince them to take a tour? Because for the last 9 years, every venue in this, 90% of the venues in this country wouldn't touch me, right? How are we going to convince them? And I want to go out as me, but it's a double-edged sword. Do you know what I mean? If I go out as Daniel O'Reilly, then fans of Dapper Laughs ain't going to connect with it. Do you know what I mean? But that's what the promoters were worried about. That if I say it's Daniel O'Reilly, and they're like, "Who knows Daniel O'Reilly? Does anyone know Daniel O'Reilly? Are they going to buy tickets?" And I'm like, "Look, trust me. I've spent the last fucking 10 years, or at least definitely the last 5 years, and especially the last year, being my authentic self and like opening up who I am to my audience. Like being the real me, showing everything, warts and all, my struggles, my family, my kids, being a father, my addictions, my sobriety, my mental health issues, losing my dad, everything. They know me. They're not tuned in for the character. So I had to sell that to them. And then it was basically about coming out of my sobriety this year. I feel like I've not only come out of Dapper Laughs like all them years ago, but I've also come out of being an addict, being stuck on alcohol and drugs. So I am completely out of that character as well. And then obviously all my fans they just love Kid Frankie, Sesh Gremlin, Jim and Steve. When I look back on all the characters that I've created, Squadron Leader, all of these characters, I never even realised I created so many characters. And it's like, just pays homage to where those characters come from and what part of me they're from. Like Kid Frankie is, a naughty young kid. That was me. There's parts of that was me at school. Yeah. So then I talk about growing up and what that was like. And then the Sesh Gremlin is, the alter ego. That's my addiction. Do you know what I mean? It's telling me that I need drink and drugs in order to survive. You know what I mean? Or to get through the weekend or whatever. So all of these characters are part of me. And that's basically the gist of it. It's quite profound, actually.
Yeah. I think, like you were just saying, people who want to come and watch a comedy show are looking for Dapper Laughs. I think it's going to be really split. I think it's actually going to be some Dapper Laughs, some Daniel O'Reilly, some Sobriety. It's going to be quite broad, and especially what you've done with Sobriety, it's blown up. The podcast that you got, Minutes of Sobriety, has just got massive. The mental health aspect, which you deal with, Mate, of course. How have those come about? What was the inspiration behind Mates, and how did Minister Sobriety happen?
I was really in a dark place. I have been since my father passed away around 2017. But my job is to create content, right? And I'm like, I it's not even like I mean, you've worked with me. I'm like obsessed. It's like I don't even wake up and think, what am I going to do today? It's like my stories are me, man.
Yeah.
It's like, it's like I don't think about it. It's like the phone is attached to me. It's like I take him on my journey.
It's a day in the life.
It's a day in the life constantly. Yeah. And I very much like used my audience as my counselor, to talk. So when my father passed away, I was talking at him, this is how I feel. My dad's died and fucked the world, and I was drinking and, session and everything. And then when my mental health was falling apart and everything, I was just very open. And because of that, the audience reached back out to me, people that had also considered suicide, people that were battling drink and drug addictions, people that were going through losing their father. They all reached out to me, and it was then that I realised that I'm not really equipped to deal with people on an individual level. It was quite a lot of pressure. It was hard, and I felt
it's a lot for one person.
Yeah, I mean, you've seen firsthand. Do you know what I mean? You've had access to my social media, so it's hundreds of messages a day some days, and some of them deep. I just thought, I can't connect to these people. They're reaching out to me. I need to create something that I can give to them, right? So they can feel that connection back. They can feel something back. And that's where Mates came from, which was, I could direct these people to this group where there's like 40,000 men in there where they can post anonymously, or they can post as themselves, their problems, and then the community in there can wade in and help them and talk. And it's just a conversation piece. You can do it anonymously, or you can just sit in there and watch other people that are going through it.
And if you're not ready to talk, you can have a look what's going on. You can have
a look,
eventually when you're ready.
Yeah, I'm really proud of it. It's a huge thing. It saved lives. We've talked to a lot of people off the metaphorical ledge. There's been a lot of people that want to commit suicide and found peace and connection in there. Connection's the key. And then the podcast was simple. Once I sort of admitted that I was powerless, once I started drinking and stuff, I needed to entwine it in my life. I was never going to, there's no way I was going to go sober unless I was talking about sobriety, just because.
Is that just putting the pressure on yourself? So I can't give up on these people now.
Yeah. And and just I'm very much like, if I shout about it, then I have to stick to it, and I knew that the only way that I was really going to get sober is if I try to find out everything, make it like my comedy. If I just invested my life into it, so there's a massive part of my life now, maybe 25-30% of my time and my life and what I do with my time is invested in creating content around sobriety or learning about sobriety. And I just dedicated myself to do one podcast a week, every week for the foreseeable future, with an industry expert, psychologist, doctor, or, whatever, just to
real experiences,
just to sit and talk, real experiences, people that have overcome sobriety, suicide, prevention, anything. Just immerse myself in it for a couple of hours a week, create content around it, and it was for me, right? Originally, I didn't know what was going to happen with it, but I just needed to create, because that's what I do.
Yeah.
And if I create about something, it sort of becomes my life. But now it's for other people. But other people have tuned in and gone sober, and they use it to stay sober. It's amazing.
I think with your social media, it's very much like it is a day in a life. It is everything. It's almost like you're a bit of the Truman Show, sort of the Dapper Show instead. Is there, because you've got family now, is there stuff that you don't put out there? Is there stuff which you do hold back for yourself? Or is it all out there?
Yeah, I mean, you have to, like, special moments, because it makes them unspecial. Like today, my family, they've been away for a couple of weeks. They came back and then they went away for a week and come back, and then they went away. And when I do nice things or special things or moments that are very meaningful, if I'm filming it, it takes that away from it. It's like, I can see like my wife or the kids And like, is this for your socials
This is for us.
or is this for us? So, for instance, like I'm going to go and surprise them. They're flying back and they're landing. They're with my mother-in-law, and they're going to be driving back from the airport. They've got their car and everything, but I'm going to go up and meet them with some signs for my daughters, because they don't think I'm going to be there.
Someone else might film it though, and then it's not your fault.
Yeah. Oh, you free in about an hour and a half? No, but moments like that. But also, when I'm being a twat, you know what I mean. When I'm arguing with my missus, or when I'm moody, or when I'm not, let's have it right. We don't. I like to share my struggles, in the sense of the word, my struggles, like my addictions, my mental health downturns. But when I'm just being a twat, I don't film that, do I? You know what I mean? Because there's no benefit to it. But we if I'm like storming around the house because she's asked me to do something and I don't want to do it and acting like a child, obviously those bits.
How much when you take your photos or filming stuff and you think, oh, Shelley, this would be really good content? Do you have to convince her, or she's like, yeah, go on then, do a sketch?
I think Shelley learned a long time ago that it's part of her wife duties. Do you know what I mean? It's part of, if she wants a big house and a fancy car and loads of money, then she's doing the sketch. But no, in all honesty, she's always game. Like, and she's funny, man. She comes up. She used to really come up with a lot of ideas and do her own content. But I think maybe in 10 years, I've asked her if she'd be involved in something, and she's maybe said no a couple of times. I mean, considering I'm making content every single fucking day.
And a lot of it.
And it's normally just because I've either been a twat or she's not in the mood, not because she don't want to do content.
Film career. Yeah. Now, you've done a couple of films now. Do you want to talk a little bit about your film experience now?
Yeah, man. I'm an actor in the true sense of the word. Before I'm a comedian. A lot of people don't realise that I've done theatre and musical theatre and acting from a very young age, and went to performing arts school and everything like that. Acting's my first passion, and I think that's why character comedy is such a big part of my comedy creation. Do you know what I mean? Because the acting, like when I create sketches, I like ranting and talking. If I've got something I need to get out quickly and I've got a point, I'll just rant about it. If my schedule is busy, which it always is, I'll just sit and rant about it. I'll write some comedy and rant. But really my passion is playing two parts of a rant, and really cultivating the acting, the expression within the acting and the emotion and all of that jazz. So film for me is like a fucking dream come true. It's like making movies is like the mecca of what, social media to me is like, I don't know, like the parts, like the apprenticeship, and like and make it, even though it's huge, but the making films is like the dream. And I'm not getting cast in no films. I haven't been. I certainly weren't getting cast in any films after the whole Dapper Laughs things happened. So I learned quite quickly that the only way that I'm ever going to shoot films is to make them myself. And I had to learn how to do that. So I teamed up with Terry Stone, a producer, and he done all the raising money and sorting out the crews and the real producing work, making films. And I wrote the scripts and acted. And then once I'd learned what I needed to learn, I set up my own production company and become a producer in the true sense of it. I raised the money for my last film. We got it up to #1 in the Amazon Independent. There's still a lot of shade around my name. So, my first film was many years ago with Terry Stone, and a lot of places didn't want to take it because it was me. So unfortunately, it kind of got shelved. But this next one done well on the independents. I don't know, for some reasons, maybe. I don't know if it's the quality of the film. I mean, it was a good film, but it's low budget. But that hasn't hit any of the big platforms. But I'm writing and making and creating. And listen, the way that I look at things, like anything like this, is I'm a firm believer that, I have to become a massive movie star. I have to. And my films have to end up on Netflix. They have to if I fucking make enough of them. They have to.
Yeah.
Like, what are you going to do? You're going to keep ignoring my films. It might take me 50 years, but and then my thinking is, once one of them fucking blows, then one of them blows, they're going to go, oh, actually, those last 5, they're fucking genius. And I'm going to be like, well, they're fucking 3 times as much now to buy them. But, so And I've just written one about sobriety, mental health, and everything like that. So I'm just thinking authenticity is going to be the key to success. So I'm just trying to be real.
Being authentic out there, especially on social media,
Yeah.
can have its downfalls sometimes. So as much positivity which is out there and from what you're doing, you do get the odd dickhead comment.
Yeah.
How do you cope with that?
Do you know what? I'll be honest with you, mate. I don't cope very well with it. I think you know that anyway. As we've worked together, you've seen that it's very difficult for me not to take things personally. I'm extreme. I don't know if it's got anything to do with what I've been through in my life, with the counselling, or even further back to when I was a child, you know, or whatever. But I take criticism. I can take constructive criticism well.
I don't think on social media it's ever constructive.
It's never.
Is it?
No. You know. So I can take it if someone's like, look, that wasn't funny. I think actually it would have been better if you'd done this. I love that. I'll go, all right, nice. But if someone goes, that shit's not funny, you're a twat, then I'm like, well, do you want to fight? That's what I'm like. That's how I feel. Like, it angers me. Or if someone is just abusive or rude or out of line, I think I'm very immature. I think my ego is so inflated. And I'm very immature that stuff like I'm from a man perspective, stuff like that angers me. I want to grab hold of people. But more so what I've learned in the last 10 months of sobriety, because sobriety is all about sort of letting go of your ego and
self-control.
Yeah, self-control and being comfortable in your own skin. You know, because truly if you love yourself and you know you're a good person and you're doing the best you can and you focus on the things that are important to you, you shouldn't really give a fuck what anyone else thinks. But that is so hard. I don't know if like the social media is like an addiction to me, and I've abused it to a certain extent where I'm so fucking tuned in to what my image is.
Sorry, you're like plugged into the matrix.
Yeah, I'm so tuned in that a slight tint on my reputation or image going wrong can set off this whole trauma in my mind back to what happened. So I don't know if it's that. But now, through the sobriety stuff, with the mental health stuff, when I'm talking about drink or drugs or you know, suicide or any of these dark things, and I get a negative response from that, if I'm talking about tips on how to stay sober, or you might have a problem if videos, and people are like, shut the fuck up, no one fucking cares, then I realise, right, okay, it's because you're in pain.
Yeah, I about to say I've seen the way you react to those comments, and it's light. It's not piss, you know,
and it's changed. Yeah. It's changed my whole attitude, even on the ones that are people are being horrible to me on my comedy videos. Because ultimately, if you're reacting negative to someone online, the truth of it is it's triggered something inside of you, you know. And
as opposed to
and happy people aren't abusive to people. So ultimately, once I take my ego out of it, the person that's being horrible to me is just going through some shit. So.
The tour coming up.
Yeah.
What can we expect? I mean, is it written? Is it done?
Yeah.
What can anyone who's bought a ticket so far? What can they expect to see?
The best work I've ever done in my life, because it's been written when I'm sober. The show format is together now, and what I'm doing with my work in progress shows and at the comedy clubs is picking and choosing the best out of what's going to make the show. So I've written loads of stuff, and it's like I'm testing it with them, and then together it will get put into the show. But there'll be an aspect of every single show that will be unrehearsed, that will be for that audience, right? And that to me, I feel like one of my best skills, and anyone who's seen me live will know what I mean, is creating and interacting with the audience and creating comedy from that spot. So that's a piece of magic that is going to be for each location. But an emotional roller coaster, but some honest comedy, and of course some naughty stuff. I didn't even approach this tour with a view of toning things down and being safe.
Yeah.
I approached it with, if it's my last one, I'm going out with a fucking bang. You know what I mean? But
also, if people bought a ticket for your show,
for me, so. Mate, I've never written sober, and that's the truth. You know, I've always, through all my years of doing comedy, I've either written drunk or I've written hungover from being drunk or wanting to get drunk.
Yeah.
And I've rarely performed sober as well, even if it's just having 1 or 2 beers to take the edge off. So I'm a different animal now, and it's I'm excited. I'm so proud of it. So excited.
So before, when you used to go have a quick drink before going on stage, what's going to be the routine now?
I don't know, mate. I don't know. When I getting myself like in a relaxed, like zenful state, of creativity. It's very weird because you're to me, performing stand-up comedy is all about how you're perceived from like how the audience sees you, right? If you go out on stage and you're like, fucking hell, I hope this goes all right, I'm not sure what's going to happen. They can see it, right? So the key to a great show is kind of not giving a fuck, right, about what the audience think. Like look at them straight in the face and kind of being like, fuck you, it's funny. If you don't like it, fuck off. I love being here. I'm here to have some fucking fun, right? But that has to sort of be a front, because you have to be seriously well prepared. Your comedy has to be crafted. You have to know what you're talking about. You need to have a point, the punchlines, everything, the timing lined up, your audience interaction crafted. But you need to pretend that you're not thinking about that. Yeah. So you need to have that front. It's like acting. You need to act like nothing's going on, but you need to be prepared. And the alcohol done that for me. I'd be a nervous bag of nerves, but I'd be completely unprepared because my life was a fucking mess when I was drinking. And the alcohol would just turn me into a bit of a nutcase that didn't give a fuck. So the comedy was never 100%. It was probably 50% of what I'm capable of. But they loved seeing the madness.
Yeah.
Now you get the madness, but it's fucking refined
and controlled.
Yeah, and fucking intelligent. Yeah, weird, isn't it? Well, maybe not the content.
Oh, okay.
But the thinking behind it.
Okay. The science behind it.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting because I didn't know you had sort of a history with musical theatre. So if you could be in a musical now, what would it be?
Grease. Yeah, Danny Zuko.
Yeah. You would be. I thought you'd be better as Sandy, to be fair.
Yeah.
Okay.
Grease, yeah. I've done it many times, Grease. Yeah, I have.
You got any photos and videos of that?
No, not that you'll ever see.
No. Okay, so I've got some questions which have been chucked to us from
people actually, people on your socials knew what I was then?
Yeah, they did. To be honest, most of them were from Portsmouth. I think because
I've done shows down there.
We have a very lad culture. It is. We have the most pubs outside of London.
Yeah, Portsmouth is,
So we do have that sort of culture. So I have got a few questions. Some are from Guildford. You'll probably be able to tell because they're the ones which are spelled correctly. But anyway, right. So we'll go through these really quick. Top tips for a social media content creator now.
Wow, that's a great question. Top tips for a social media creator: take risks. Don't be confined by your guts. Do you know what I mean? Take risks outside of your guts. Don't be like, I want to kind of do more, but I'm not sure. Just think fuck it. You have to really think fuck it with your content. My content is wild, man. Do you know, it is, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I kind of think, I think to whatever your niche is, you just got to remember there's a million other people doing it, right? Yeah. So really be wild. Just remember that people don't want to see stuff on social media that they can see stood next to them in a pub. Do you know what I mean? Or one of your friends. You have to be different. You have to be engaging. If that's not you, then create a different personality in order to be engaging.
I think you used the perfect word there, niche. Yeah. You're not, copying somebody. It's
your niche needs to be you. Yeah. Your niche within your niche. So if whatever it is, I mean, people like comedy, but there's no one else on this planet doing comedy like I'm doing. I'm pretty sure of it, right? I watch out for it. I mean, there's people that try and replicate it, but So yeah, find yourself. But what other great tip I would probably give would try and create your content around trending topics. You're naturally going to get growth from people that are looking for stuff. So even if you're a personal trainer and ULEZ is going on in London and everyone's having a go at the mayor about ULEZ, if you can somehow connect your content around that trending topic, the people that are searching and talking about that are going to see you. That's how I grow. You know, if a topic is going mega viral and you can attach your content to it, you're going to go viral. And don't be emotionally connected to your content as well. Just fucking make it, create it, and fuck it off. You know, once you've committed to it going out there, just because sometimes, let it go, man. Because sometimes you can create content and look at it for the first 5 minutes, not see what you like, and take it off. But if you just waited half an hour, could have turned into one of the best videos that you've done. And also, just remember the people that are criticising you, 99% of them wouldn't have the bollocks to do what you're doing. Have never fucking done it, and you never get criticism from people that are doing better than you.
Great advice. This is a nice boring one, so I presume this is from somebody in Guildford. What is your go-to breakfast?
Overnight oats.
That was boring, wasn't
it?
Yeah. If you weren't a comedian, what would you be?
Ooh. Well,
Danny Zuko.
Yeah, Danny Zuko. No, I'll be a businessman. I mean, a lot of people don't realise that. I mean, you've worked with me, so you know the sort of level of different companies and businesses. And
okay, if you had to focus on one thing, because I know you like to go 200 miles per hour.
On everything, yeah.
One job, one thing.
Oh, wow. I'd love to be a boxer, but I'm not very good at it. No, I'd probably be, I don't know really. I don't know. I've got so many fingers in so many different pies, but sales. I'd be in sales. I'd be selling. That's what I do.
Cars?
I have sold cars. Yes, I've sold cars. I've sold fucking hell, everything. Apart from, well, actually, I even sold weed once. Yeah. No, I've sold. Yes, I'll be a salesman.
Okay. Off the upcoming tour, is there a favourite location or venue?
Yeah, London Shepherd's Bush Empire, just because it's iconic. But also, I'm looking forward to going to all the little ones. But the Shepherd's Bush Empire is going to be, the one. Yeah, excited for that.
Okay. Your dream podcast guest?
Wow. Fuck. Can I give my top three? Can I give three?
Yeah, go on.
Russell Brand.
Yeah. Okay.
Comedy, sobriety, mental health.
Yeah.
Just ticks the boxes for me.
Isn't it? Yeah.
I wanted to see one of his work in progress shows the other day. I needed a translator for the fucking intelligence level. My IQ wasn't quite there, but it was brilliant. Russell Brand, Tom Hardy, and third place would either, I think, Stephen Graham.
Oh, okay. Okay. Another boring one. Favourite meal?
Curry.
Okay. Stuck on a desert island, what 3 items would you take with you?
Lube, because you never know. Do you know what I mean?
It's quite dry in a desert.
Yeah. My phone and a charger.
So no family, no.
No.
Leave them, okay.
Well, look, I've got the phone. I've got the lube. I can do social media.
You could. I don't know if you have Wi-Fi, but you could.
No.
See, so you've done gigs in Portsmouth. So we have this island which is opposite, and it's. Have you heard of it? Gosport.
No.
It's a shithole. Like, honestly, have you know the Simpsons movie when you get this dome and it goes up?
Yeah.
I'll take you there one day. It's like going to the 1960s. It's awful.
Yeah.
So you don't want to be stuck there. Okay. Biggest idols, past, present, or future?
Wow. Biggest idols, past, present, or future? I don't know really, mate. I don't know.
Maybe comedians that you looked up to when you were younger?
Yeah, Lee Evans. Massive idol for me.
Yeah.
I'm probably going to stick with Lee Evans because when I was doing acting, when I was in college, that's when I first saw one of Lee Evans' shows. And when I watched Lee Evans, that's what made me decide that I wanted to be a comedian. Or that's when I thought that would be amazing if I could do that. But I never thought it was. That's why it's quite surreal, actually. You know, we never look at where we are in our lives. We always look at where we want to be.
Yeah.
So I wish that I could be so much more present. You know, where you just stop and go, "Oh my God, you are a comedian," because I am a comedian. But I always think of myself as that kid looking at Lee Evans, going, "I wish I could be a comedian." And he acted out all of his jokes.
So much energy.
Yeah. So there's it's no mistake that he was the first comedian I ever watched. He's who I idolised to be like. I looked at him and I thought, imagine having all them people looking at you laughing. Imagine if you could come up with them jokes and act them out. So it's no coincidence that I act out my comedy. you know. So I think he's probably from a comedy perspective the biggest influence on my life. Yeah.
Wow, amazing, Dan. Thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Yeah, it's good fun.
Cool. There we go.
Thank you.
Speaking of acting out your comedy,
Yeah.
I once Casey Frey sketch. I once copied it in my room in uni during lockdown. I think just to entertain my mates.
Yeah.
And I found it so hard to go between the two characters.
Yeah.
Do you do one character at a time, or do you
No.
interject?
No.
What?
Yeah.
So they're like having a conversation.
Yeah. I have to be in. It's like free flow creativity. You have to. It has to come, but like I have a weird way of being. It comes with practice as well, mate.
Sure,
You got to remember,
yeah.
you don't. It's not like
Overnight.
yeah, it's not like a natural ability. It's like an idea that you've got. But I've been doing it for years, mate. And when I studied acting, that's exactly what it is: becoming different people. So you know, everything changes for me when I do it. Like my face, my voice, my mannerisms. It's like now, it's like each character is somewhere in my mind, and then you just grab it. And in order to really get a conversation going, to be able to get those quick edits, you have to do it like
Dosh.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
yeah.
I've always
Very
wondered
cool.
at people that are actually
Very
good
cool.
at it.
It takes some work though. You've got to create the character. You've got to
yeah,
think. You've
sure.
got to sit and think. Like, you know, Jim and Steve, they're both working class men that talk about political issues. Like for me, like when all the stuff was going on in lockdown and stuff like that, when Boris Johnson was coming on and he was doing them things saying, right, this has changed now. You know, you're not allowed to eat in pubs, but you can eat outside in a fucking marquee. And then I always used to think to myself, so how thick does he think we are? That we're going to be like, oh, the fucking the virus won't get you inside, but it will get you. You know, won't get you outside, but it will get you inside.
Yeah.
And that's how those characters were created. I was like, right, what I need to do is I need to be those thick working class people and talk to each other how Boris Johnson thinks we are, how the government thinks we are.